I'm the director of the Wilsonian. My name is Casey Stedman. So pleasing to see how popular Art Deco is. Full house here, and I'm sure we'll probably have quite a few people watching in the cafe. I'm not going to say anything more because everything else after this is much more interesting. So I'm going to hand off to Dina from DPL, and you guys enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you'll avoid the rain and you'll see some wonderful sights and enjoy all the festivities in the park. It's going to be out.
Thank you, Casey, and I'm in charge of the good weather, so. All right. The sunshine is here. And I want to welcome everybody to the 48th annual Art Deco weekend. This year celebrating the centennial of Art Deco that began in the 1925 Paris Exposition. My name is Nina Weber-Worth, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of the Miami Side Preservation League we call NBPL. We're thankful, as Casey said, to the Wilsonian FIU for our long-time cultural partnership for hosting today's lecture series at their wonderful institution. At a time when it feels like we're entering into the twilight zone, cultural institutions are more important than ever, and it's really time for us to step up and join and contribute and support them. For those of you who are not yet members of MDPL, you can visit our website at mdpl.org to join. Members receive free walking tours, a gift shop discount, and our online e-newsletter. More than that, your donations support our ongoing efforts to preserve, promote, and protect Art Deco architecture in Miami Beach and beyond. Once again, thank you and enjoy the lecture. And here is Luna Goldberg from Wilsonian.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to see another full house. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker for today, Madeline Deschamps, who will be delivering a talk titled Art Deco Crosses the Atlantic. Dr. Deschamps is an interior designer specializing in high-end residences and hospitality, as well as an art historian with an expertise in decorative arts and métiers d'art. She earned her doctorate in art history from the Sorbonne and has taught at prestigious institutions, including the Sorbonne, Deco, New York University, Parsons, and Bard Graduate Center. Formerly the curator of American Center in Paris and an editor of Édition Flammarion, she also served as senior designer with Peter Marino Architects, who recently did an event with us here, and later as head of materials and finishes at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill in New York. Dr. Deschamps has authored and contributed to numerous publications. She has lectured widely at institutions such as the Royal Ontario Museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, and the Musée National d'Art Moderne in Paris, among others. Madeline's talk this afternoon will highlight how Art Deco reflected societal shifts and the facets of exuberance and change in friends and the United States. Please join me in welcoming our speaker.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak about this interesting subject in a very interested audience. And I thought that I would, yes, maybe, is this good?
Much better.
Much better, good. I thought that to answer the question of one of our gentlemen here a little earlier, I would try and put it very briefly in context. We have the 1889 exhibition of Exposition Universelle in Paris, which was commemorating the 1789 French Revolution, and that's when the Eiffel Tower went up. Then the very famous 1900 Exposition 1900, when the metro was built, and which was a tremendous success. And we have to put it in the context of what France represented at the time. It was quite a center of scientific and medical research. Think of Marie Curie or Pasteur or Charcot in all this period of fin de siècle, end of the century. And then we come into the Belle Époque. And the Belle Époque tends to refer to a time of optimism, of relative, of course, relative wealth, of peace, at a time when there was a lot of hope in progress. And it was a very optimistic time. And this we can see here. We all know about Art Nouveau and the beginning of Art Nouveau in Paris. This is, of course, Hector Guimard's Metro and the balcony. And here to the right is René Lalique necklace, which he designed for his wife in 1899. To the left, obviously, Louis Compton Tiffany, the same sort of period, although you would call him Art Nouveau, but it is the same period. Then came the First World War, with over 18.5 million dead. And it was a human tragedy, obviously, but also an intellectual tragedy, because there had been such progress in the last decades that people were just hopeful that it would go on. And those who lived through it were really very desperate. And Paul Valéry, the author, for instance, said in 1919, the war began in 1914, in 1919, Paul Valéry said, "Nous autres civilisations, nous savons maintenant que nous sommes mortels." We civilizations now know that we are mortal. Despite everything we have built, everything crashed. So everyone needed, of course, a change after the war. It was the time of the Année Folle, here it would be called the Roaring Twenties or the Jazz Age, and I know you have a little presentation on Josephine Baker, and the Folie Bergère was typical of that early fun that people absolutely needed to have. Think of Dada, of Surrealism, of all the, quote, surreal and maybe sometimes silly things that people needed to do. And here we have Josephine Baker to the right, in front of what is typical architecture of the time. The Paris expatriates, of course, were very important at that time, and it's important to see how Americans were already in Paris and who they were meeting and how the exchanges were important at that time. Gertrude Stein was really a pioneer in discovering all the younger artists of the time. Think of the Cubism, of course, Fauvism, or everything that was going on in the arts, and the writers. So she was really encouraging all, and as you see here with Alice B. Toklas, their flat was filled in Paris, their flat was filled with contemporary art, and in particular she helped Ernest Hemingway. She mentored him, she was even the godmother to his son, and at that time she and they, all that crowd, were inviting out just a list of people that you would meet at that time around that group. Paul Poiret, the couturier, Fernand Léger, the painter, Kiki de Montparnasse, Man Ray's lover, Soutine, Ravel, Diaghilev, Le Corbusier, Stravinsky, André Citroën, also the car, and even the young Charles de Gaulle. They were all there on the French side. And Cole Porter came over about that time with a piano keyboard with collapsible legs that he could travel with, and a little bit closer, okay. And among that crowd of Americans were Hemingway, Man Ray, Gershwin, Ezra Pound, Elena Rubinstein, Sarah and Gerald Murphy, and so on. So they were all eager to meet each other on an intellectual level, but also to enjoy themselves. And one of the important places to meet was also the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. And the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, we were speaking of when did it begin? Well, this is 1913, was built in 1913, which is interesting because it's long before Art Deco, but it already has the orthogonal vertical lines that we will see later, that we've seen already. And Pierre Bourdelle was the the sculptor who was asked to decorate it with these mid-top, which are, as you can see from the top there, you can see where where they go all around the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. And this one to the right is inspired by Isadora Duncan. Isadora Duncan lived in mostly at that time in the south of France, and Bourdelle saw her dance and was very inspired by her. At that time, we saw that the Fitzgeralds were living here, and the great Gatsby was written here. And Hemingway recalled that sort of youthful time in his book written quite a bit later, A Movable Feast. And in jazz, Fitzgerald was writing many articles back to America, and he said in Echoes of the Jazz Age at that time, just a few years later, it all seems so rosy and romantic to us who were young then, because we will never feel so intensely about our surroundings anymore. And that just shows how much they knew that they were going through an incredibly creative period. This is a work by Gerald Murphy, who was a wonderful painting. Unfortunately, he painted very, very few paintings. The real work is about this size, so it's quite massive. And it's interesting to see how he's interested in all these cogs and industrial mechanism. It's called Watch, and it was done in 1925, and it belongs to the Dallas Museum of Art. So we've already seen quite a lot, so I'll go fast. We saw quite a lot this morning about the exposition. And one of the main requirement to be able to exhibit in the exposition, the whole world was exhibited except the Germans, of course, and the primary requirement for inclusion was, as they would say, all works have to be thoroughly modern. No copying of historical styles of the past would be permitted. And why did they have to insist on that? Because the end of the 19th century, as you know, was between the Victorian era, Napoleon III. It was all a lot of pastiches of imitations of Louis XVI and so on. So this had to be modern. And we saw that at length this morning the pavillon l'Ambassade de France, and this is the pavillon des collectionneurs, where all the work by Ruhlmann, Ruhlmann. So we can see the same sort of decoration as we saw on the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. To the right, if it were not for the two armchairs, you would almost think you were in a Louis XVI environment. It's so delicate and precise. And on the right, we have a mural work by Dupas, Jean Dupas, whom we will see again soon. So this is a work which was commissioned from Ruhlmann by the French-American financier David Veil, and he had a large collection of Louis XVI, 18th century, and he decided to commission this. So it's reminiscent, of course, of the kidney shapes that you would find in English furniture in the 18th century or French. Look how delicate the legs are with ivory, with tassels, sometimes not in this one, and shark skin to the right, shark skin being a very difficult material to work. As you know, it's called shark skin, but it's in fact rays, the tummy of rays. And he was working in his family firm of Lazare Frères, whom we have heard on. And the wood is amboina, and very often we will see that it looks a little like ebony, but ebony is extremely difficult to work and extremely expensive. So this is a commode au char, carriage by Ruhlmann also, and it is of that sort of wood that they use to imitate or replace ebony, like Makassar ebony, which comes from Indonesia, or palm wood, which came from the Guyanas or South America. And here again, you see the delicacy of the ivory and the little balcony here, which is just like you would have seen on Louis XVI's desk. And on top, we see this figure, which is not particularly pretty, but it is by Alfred Jagnot, Tête Immortelle, 1928. And this is Alfred Jagnot, we will see again. So Jacques-Émile Roullemagne took part in all the major decorations of the time, in the cruises, in the international exhibitions, where in France or in America. He worked for the Maharaja of Indore, so all over the world one finds a work of his. Some were a little more whimsical than he was. This was commode chiffonnier. Chiffon means rags or little objects, and this is a chiffonnier de Madame, in the shape of Madame, obviously. And it was for the bedroom of the pavillon Ambassade de France, that's it. And again, shagreen here with tinted ivory and stone on the top. Here we have a work to the left by Paul Iribe. And Iribe was a decorator, designer, a great friend of Coco Chanel's. And I don't know if you can see the detailing, but here you have all these little pearls which are wrought into the wood and gilded, and the shape of the feet, of course, is very Louis XVI looking, shark skin, beautiful. To the right we have a much later imitation which doesn't have all the decoration, but it's the tendency, of course. You're going towards more affordable. Who could afford this beautiful chair to the left? So they are making more and more affordable pieces. This here, we're beginning to see something a little more modern. Still beautiful, beautiful materials, but something more modern in shape. I don't know how very comfortable it is, but this is Pierre Legrain, fauteuil de lecture. So you're supposed to relax and read in it, and you even have a little interesting. And he was inspired rather. We see Pierre Legrain again. It's inspired by. He was very inspired by Africa and by the Senoufou shepherd. They called the Senoufou shepherds in Ivory Coast. Probably had little wooden collapsible chairs and they could sit in it. Anyway, this was an inspiration. So here we have Jean Dunant. We are familiar with Jean Dunant. A beautiful cabinet by Prince, Eugène Prince, and the desk to the right is also Eugène Prince, P-R-I-N-T-Z, and Jean Dunant. It's a cabinet which is made of palm wood. You can see how all this here, this palm wood, you can see striated. And dinanderie. Dinanderie is the word for copper work that is hammered, very carefully hammered and sometimes lacquered. So this is, again, very precious, and look at the feet too here. This is very precious work. To the right, we have the bureau of commissioned for the Maréchal Lyautey. And Maréchal Lyautey was the big marshal of the French colonial, I don't know if it's still conquest, but at least empire. And it's made of Patawa wood, Patawa palm wood and gilt bronze. So and you see in the back, this is in the back here, it's positioned in the Musée de l'Immigration. It used to be called the Musée, all the way east of Paris is the Vincennes, and next to the Porte de Vincennes is this musée. It used to be the Musée des Colonies, but of course you can't call anything the Musée des Colonies now, so it's called Musée de l'Immigration, and it has, if you have a chance, do go there. It has absolutely beautiful murals, so you take the metro towards Vincennes, almost to the end, in fact. So it's a good time to speak of why they are using all these materials. The French government, who had this big empire, encouraged designers to use materials from the colonies for commerce, to show people how beautiful the work is and the woods are. And so this exhibition of 1931 was absolutely a huge success. It was not, of course, we know that it was not the first time that the French were interested in Orientalism. At the end of the 18th century, there was chinoiserie, all the chinoiserie in Louis XVI, textiles and so on. And later, at the end of the 19th century, there was the Japonism. So here, this is more linked to the French. And the main pavilion was this Angkor reconstruction, which was 1/3 of the real one. So you can imagine, 1/3, which was absolutely gigantic. And when people went to the exhibition, they were enthralled. There were millions and millions of visitors, and it was le tour du monde en un jour. You could go around the world in one day, because you saw so many different countries, pavilions. And there was, however, some how would you say, some contesting of this exhibition. There was a document that belongs to the Met, the Metropolitan Museum, called La vérité sur les colonies. Do you want to really know the truth on the colonies? Ne visitez pas l'exposition coloniale. Don't visit the colonial exhibition. And just to have an idea of who was signing this, Louis Aragon, André Breton, Paul Éluard, and so on, Yves Tanguy, these were all people who were saying don't visit it. Why? Because there were also, in that little exhibition, oh yes, this exhibition, there was a little exhibition which was encouraged by the Comintern, the Communist Party, where they showed all sorts of things. A people who oppresses others is not free, and that's from Karl Marx, as you can see. And there were fetishes, European fetishes. So there was some questioning of all this. Not only was there that big temple, but at that time, both for commercial, for publicity, and for discovery and excitement, there were two major expeditions. La Croisière Noire, the black croisière was going to Africa, and la Croisière Jaune going to Asia. And when they came, they were commissioned and went out into Africa and Asia. This was to the left, 1924-25, and in 1931 the yellow expedition. And when they came back, the participants of the exhibition came back to France, and they were welcomed triumphantly with great enthusiasm. And it was, if you can compare it, I was thinking that it was a little bit like when Napoleon went to conquer Egypt. He went with hundreds of scientists and draftsmen and botanists and so on. So they brought back lots and lots of specimens. And so one of the artists, as we know, who was very interested in Japanese art is Jean Dunant. And he did many pieces of dinanderie, small, big, large, huge, this copper work inside. And this one, for instance, is lacquered, and he learned lacquer through a Japanese lacquer master, and he was very interested in using a technique which is eggshell. So you would, while the lacquer is still wet, or not too wet, of course, you have to put little eggshells with tweezers and he was so particular about his eggshells that he had a number of chicken in the yard, so that he knew they would be of good health, good quality. So this is again Jean Dunant, one of the beautiful lacquer. This is not quite as big, but it is 2 meters long. So it is one of those beautiful pieces, decorative pieces of Jean Dunant. And this belongs also to the Metropolitan Museum. We have seen a lot of interest in exoticism, and to the left we have a piece of fabric by Raoul Dufy. You probably know the Raoul Dufy, his landscapes, pretty delicate sunny landscapes of the Côte d'Azur, but he also is a very, very good inventive art, I think even more inventive in the decorative arts, paperwork and fabrics. And to the right we have Marlene Dietrich, who was then living in Hollywood because she made 7 films with Rieke von Stroheim, and she is here in front of a Zebra and Black Panther with Cacti by American artist Charles Baskerville. So again, a lot of interest in exoticism. Now we are still working with beautiful materials. So we see we've moved from Pullman, beautiful materials, beautiful traditional shapes. We're moving more modern.
This is Eileen Gray.
This is Eileen Gray, who is a very inventive Irish designer in France, and to the left is a prototype of a screen for her own Paris flat, and it is all lacquered, and as you can see, it is for the time when after the Second World War, or the First World War, flats smaller and so on, so you had to accommodate pieces. And to the right is a sofa designed by Polynesian canoes. She was also a very interesting architect, and she was not exactly an architect, but she designed it in such a way that it's very, very modern. Here, if you go to the Côte d'Azur to Nice, you have Brune Martin, which is about east of Nice, her house that she had built. You can imagine 1929, how very modern the house is, all white and beautifully designed. And to the right here we have furniture, very modern, but it is at that time, 1929, which we would think, look at the desk to the right here, we will see something similar. And of course, friend was Le Corbusier, who felt very much at ease, as you can see, in the house. And he felt so much at ease that she lent him the house for some months. And he thought, all this is very white, I should paint a few murals. So he did paint a few murals. When she came back, she was absolutely furious, never came back again. But anyway, they were, Le Corbusier, in fact, Le Corbusier bought a tiny little, it's a cabane, which is like 3 times this podium here. And he designed everything in this tiny space facing the Mediterranean. And every morning he would go swimming just below. One day, he didn't come back. So he drowned there. So again, traditional materials, much more clean, simple shapes. This is Jean-Michel, a table made of mica. Mica is a very interesting material. You can do all sorts of things with it. It is a beautiful finish. And to the right we have his steel, built bronze stools. And a story that Jean Cocteau, who's part of all that group, once taken to visit Jean-Michel Franck's apartment. And in the flat, he said, built a furnished apartment. He said, about Jean-Michel Franck. A nice young man, very nice. It's pity the burglars took everything away, because there was so much, so very simple. And Jean-Michel Franck was part of all that intellectual Franco-French-American group, and he, on one of his trips to America, on one of the ships, he met Nelson Rockefeller, who commissioned quite a lot of work. And this is one of the views of Nelson Rockefeller's apartment on Fifth Avenue. And you will see to the right, so you have in that flat, he was already owning Matisse, Chagall, a lot of Léger. To the right, here in the flat, we have the console here by Alberto Giacometti. And Giacometti was, of course, we all know his human sculpture. But he was all about doing decorative art. He thought it was also a very interesting part of his work. So we have this, which was commissioned by Jean-Michel for Rockefeller. We have this here. And in the back, you see some of the pieces here often are posted in Hermes leather. To the right here, no, in the center we have those gilt bronze here. These, I'm not sure how gilt bronze goes with a fire, I'm not sure. But, and anyway, many lamps, of course, as you know, made by Giacometti, which were so graceful and beautiful. An interesting person, I shouldn't say character, is Aire de Lanux. Aire, E-Y-R-E, was an American who married Comte de Lanux, and they lived in France, so she's called Aire de Lanux. And here is a portrait that I photographed in an exhibition which is really interesting. If you go to Washington, there's an exhibition called Brilliant Exiles on American women who went to Paris and spent a lot of time in Paris in the 1930s. Why so many? Because they wanted to be free, they wanted to look over their personal, private life. There was no prohibition. Women could drink and smoke in the cafe, at least outdoors. So there was a sense of great freedom at that time. And this portrait of Aire de Lanux was called The Hunter by Remain, who is one of the Americans who lived there. And by the way, the exhibition is still on if you go to Washington in February. And to the right, we see some interior with a painting by Miro and furniture pieces by Aire de Lanux. So we're going more and more modern. Here, you see down here, we have this table here, which looks quite a lot like Eileen Gray's table, which I outlined. How is it made? Well, this one was obviously made, custom made. But it is, after all, it's metal and glass, so that's obviously something that you can make industrially. So more and more, speaking of Wiener Werkstatt, but also Bauhaus, of course, which is encouraging architects. So this is the two pieces here are by Pierre Chareau, Chareau, and we see that architecture is interesting. This is a house that still exists, which was by a gynecologist in Paris, and you see how he's using glass blocks, which is very much, of course, coming from the Bauhaus. And to the right, more traditional, still beautiful, love of beautiful materials. We have a folding telephone table, and the lamp is called La Religieuse, La Petite Religieuse, because it looks like the nuns, you know, at one time nuns had these funny hats. So, you see how we've seen very beautiful traditionalists in the sense that they are using beautiful materials, and now we're going to really much more industrial materials. And this is in the pavilion we saw with the earlier talk, many pavilions of the 1925 exhibition, and this one was all the way hidden in the back because it was so ugly, no one wanted to see it. This is designed by Le Corbusier, and no one could imagine it wouldn't have all these beautiful decorations that the pavilions had. So this, as you can see, could be very obviously close to what the Bauhaus was doing, meaning the metal, the glass, you could assemble it, this was obviously made again on commission, to order, but you could have everything made industrially and brought together and put on site. So we were seeing 1925, this is 1928, also Le Corbusier, which is very early, of course. It is La Villa Savoie, 1928. You can see, it's obvious, you know, how extremely modern glass, metal, and so on it is. And if you compare it to this, 10 years later, this is 1928, and this is 1938, and it is the Gropius House in Massachusetts, in Lincoln, Massachusetts. And this is 1938, and after the Bauhaus was closed by the Nazis because they didn't believe in modernism, Gropius by Harvest, and Marcel Breuer. The furniture in this Gropius house here is made by Marcel Breuer. They both taught and they were friends from the house, as was also Laszlo Moholy-Nagy or Miss Van der Hoek, who went to Chicago, as you know. And so this is something that was done in America in those years too. So we have a very similar poster to the one we saw earlier, except it's organized and exhibited by the American Association of Museums. So the Metropolitan, as we saw, everyone was invited, but Herbert Hoover at that time was Secretary of Commerce, thought that the Americans had nothing to say, were not inventive enough, they were all old-fashioned. So their creations were old-fashioned, which in a sense was true. There was nothing very new. But many dozens of designers, and especially Vogue and art journalists, went over to the exhibition and came back with lots of ideas. And for instance, to the left is a piece by Jalot, which was bought at the exhibition by an American and donated to the Metropolitan Museum just at that time. And to the right is a piece that was exhibited at, before I get to the Metropolitan Museum and Macy's, and later Lord and Taylor's were very interested in bringing all this furniture, so they had very interesting, beautiful exhibitions of all this furniture that they had seen. And to the right is a copy of the Jalot desk in bright red, and it's okay, it's a copy, but no one really minded. These exhibitions really showed American designers who had not been able to travel how very interesting the new designs were. And we saw another picture of this very striking exhibition. The posters at that time were very important because they were telling people about everything that could see. Many French architects also worked on these American exhibitions. Why did Americans why did designers especially want to see all these exhibitions? Well, I have a quote here of someone who was working at that time as a designer. We live in an age of motor cars, radios, and transportation. And yet, we listen to the radio in a Louis XVI living room, in a Louis XVI looking radio. Why not create styles of our own? We're so young that we are the most conservative nature on the face of the globe. We cling to innovation, etc. So anyway, they really wanted to get ahead. And in these exhibitions, not only did American and French architects help and build, but there were also pavilions like this one here. It's called the Street of Paris, and there was a Café de Paris inside, and so all was very exciting. At that same time, of course, you have 1936, you have the Centennial Exhibition, or the Great Lakes Exhibition, or the famous motor arcade, 1939 New York. This is a swimming pool, and we have lots of features like the balconies, which are Art Deco, or the sunburst in back. And this was a swimming pool. And in fact, I swam competitively in the swimming pool a long time ago. But at that time, it was all water. Now they thought it was so beautiful they couldn't keep it as a swimming pool. So they transformed it into a museum of Art Deco. It is in Roubaix, which is almost on the border to Belgium, up there. And so why swimming pools? Well, swimming pools were important at that time because it's, go back a little bit, 1896 or 86, I think it is, Pierre de Coubertin reinstated the Olympic 1928, there were 22, there were first Winter Olympic Games in Chamonix. And they called a way of hygienism, if you like. You had to do sports in school. You had to do sports in school. You had to be careful about your body and so on. So that was a wave. And one of the famous piscine, the piscine Monitor here to the right, was built in Paris exactly at that time. And it's recently been renovated. I haven't gone to see it. But it was full of beautiful decorative Art Deco, like this charming lady here to the left. And to the right, Jenny Westmuller, who had won three, if I remember right, 3 gold medals at the 1924 Olympics. And anyway, he inaugurated, he was there to inaugurate, he gave lessons, swimming lessons. So this is Nice, Triton building, the French called Gloria Mention, which means Gloria Mention. It was a spectacular interior, where you can see all the staircases, the way things interlock, the beautiful ironwork. We will see that Garmont, Poirat, there are lots of French wartime artists at that time, or craftsmen at that time. So look at the beautiful lamps. So it's quite a striking. And a little photo which I took at sunrise, when there were not cars in Nice, on the Promenade des Anglais. And it's really charming because to the left you have a totally Art Nouveau, to the right a totally Art Deco house. And so it's just there, next to each other. So, Americans might have been very inventive in decorative art, but they certainly have been inventive in skyscrapers. They were the first one skyscrapers in all the well-known skyscraper architects. Most of them, at least, studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. And in the 1920s, more or less, Americans didn't really have a new style. They still had a lot of Gothic style, as we know, for skyscrapers, but they also started incorporating more Art Deco colours, or especially detailing. This is the American Radiator building, which was designed by Raymond Hood and French architect André Pouilloux, who had worked on one of the World Fairs in Chicago, and who also worked in the World's Fair on the New York World Fair later. So it was a new trend, really. Americans were finding a new style in skyscrapers. This, I think, is a beautiful picture of 1930 Vaness Chrysler building. And I find it's just so beautiful because it's full of hope, and just after it was really built during the Depression, at the start of the Depression. But anyway, this is a photograph by a wonderful photographer, Margaret Burke-White. And you see here, you have all the stores, and then you have these strange, you're not quite sure what they are. Well, I'll show you what they are. They are gargoyles. You see, they are the gargoyles. And oh yes, and you have the typical sunburst motifs in the steeple. And this is Margaret Burke-White photographing from the top of the Chrysler building. Yes, she was quite adventurous. So this is also a time which full of hope. This is from Metropolis, Slangs Metropolis, 1924 or 6, I always forget. 1920. He was in the United States. And so you see, it's New York, a little bit ahead, but he already has the flying taxis. So there are lots of French architects in the United States. And here, for instance, Paul Cret, C-R-E-T, who designed the Cincinnati Union Terminal to the left in 1933, and later the Federal Reserve, very Federal Reserve was built by French. Another building of the time was the Rockefeller Center. And all these buildings, the Chrysler, the Rockefeller Center, and the Empire State Building, were built in the heart of the Depression because they had been commissioned and started and designed and partially paid for before the crash. So they went on building. And the Empire State Building for a long time was called the empty State Building because no one could afford to rent it. So one here, this is l'amitié franco-américaine, French-American friendship, and we have the holding hands, and it was done by a Frenchman, again, Gaston Bachet. And Rockefeller was very instrumental in bringing American artists to work on Rockefeller Center. And this is done by Alfred Janiot, who did that rather graceful head on the Goldman. So it's all gilt, and at the bottom it's called Poésie, Élégance. And we all know these parts. Chamberlain, rather, building to the right, we also elevator with stylized women. And of course, quite a Miami motif. To the left, we have a frozen fountain in Bordeaux, quite an early one, inside a building. We have the French ironworker Edgar Brandt, who did that for the Canaan building on Madison Avenue, 1981 Madison Avenue. And to the right, of course, you know that, from here. And I was a few weeks ago, I was in the Philippines, and I photographed this, which I thought was really interesting. To the right, we have a detail from the Wilsonian fountain. And here is the Metropolitan Theatre. And if we look at the details, first of all, those roses that we see everywhere, these motifs are really very close. On the top line, you see how close it's really Art Deco crosses the Pacific here. And so we have these same motifs, which are all the way to answer one of your questions earlier, all the way into the Philippines. In Manila, there are other Art Deco buildings too. So we've seen French architects go to America, but they were also coming back to France after having spent quite a long time in the United States. And the U.S. Memorial Commission in France, it was called the American Battle Monument Commission on French soil, but there's everywhere travel, I'm sure you've seen heartbreaking monuments to the American dead. This is Paul Cret, who designed the Cincinnati Terminal and the Federal Reserve here. And he spent a lot of time, we've all been to countless villages in France where you have these little pyramidal in the center of the village with dozens and dozens of dead who of the same family in the villages of the First World War. Well, this is certainly, Paul Cret certainly grew up with that in France. He came to America, he taught in America, and worked a lot in America, and he's coming back to France with a totally new style, which people sometimes call Washingtonian style. It was really influenced by what he had seen and done in America. And another very striking monument, this is done by a Canadian. This is the Canadian National Vimy in the north of France. And It was a hard time, of course, as we know. And despite
everything that was
happy and jolly about what we said up to now, were very hard times. These are two photographs from an exhibition that I saw in New York, which is on still. Very interesting. It is at the New York Historical Society, and the Museum of the City in New York. It's the collection of Ron Lauder's collection of postcards. Very interesting. He collected hundreds of postcards of New York about that time. And here we have to the left homeless people living in the winter in just below Fifth Avenue. And to the right we have the work of Reginald Marsh, which you recognize. And the title of it is No One Has Starved. So the depression, we're not going to dwell on that, but we needed to have a little lightness and a little fun. And I won't dwell on your beautiful Art Deco district here, but it was just such a bright contrast to what was happening in the world. And here we have the typical eyebrow, window tops, the contrast between the vertical and horizontal works here, the balconies, the portholes, or everything that reminds you of the sea, or this one with the rounded edges. All this is very typical of what was happening in New York at that time. So if we having fun also means having fun also means going to the cinema. So you can see is in Hollywood, these rushing lines to all the way along, and glass blocks and so on. The French designers were here too, like Paul Ribe. Paul Ribe is the one who did the beautiful no-till shark skin with round. Yes. Anyway, he was commissioned by Cecil B. DeMille. He did many pieces with films with Cecil B. DeMille, and here to the right is the film that he did with them, and here to the left we have a work by in also with Cedric to the right here with Art Deco with to the left, feet of clay with the one who did the designer here, the commode, who did the Senufu. Americans, of course, were interested. Don Desky went to the Art Deco exhibition, very interested, and you can see how he did this beautiful mural. And the lighting here, we have an interesting double pair of lights here, and the lighting was always very important. It was a beautiful fresco, gilts and so on, but Desky was also modern in his design. And here we have, for instance, Walter Teague, the furniture, and Desky. It's not in context. This is a waste paper basket by John Desky. So Americans were also very modern, and Paul Frankel's skyscraper furniture, and all these clocks. And here left, for instance, you see a clock with silvered, probably rather expensive. To the right, a Bakelite clock, so much more affordable, which is a term that was used at that time was utility. Things can be beautiful and utility, and useful at the same time, industrially made. Chairs were quite to the left we have a French chair by Sandoz, and to the right René Ernst, who did things much more modern. It was a time where one was very interested by energy, of course. This big mural that Fernand Léger did for an exposition in 1936 about electricity, the power of the forces in power. So in the exhibition they had competitions. Does a dishwasher go faster than a lady cleaning? There was a big film called the Middleton Family, so they were comparing which goes faster. Anyway. So we have very interesting designers, of course, at that time. This here is the same designer in the same year. Henry Dreyfuss, 1936, the carafe to the left, and out of scale, of course, the Mercury train in Chicago, which was also very designed by him. When you see that even the thermos has speed lines on it. Radios, of course, Teague, Norman and Teague, the designer, Walter Teague, designed lights and radios. We've all seen the jukeboxes. To the right you have a toaster about to fly off. And speed, of course. Speed is one of the great themes of the time. Speed, of course. Everything the poster saying speed. People are no longer afraid of showing there's a beautiful car, of course, but on the side they're showing how it's made. So they're proud of showing how industrial they are. This is a well-known artist, of course, Tamara de Lempicka. This is a self-portrait of herself, commissioned by a Scandinavian magazine that wanted to show the power of women. And Lalique, of course, Lalique here we have it on a Bentley that belonged to the Prince of Nisar in Hyderabad, and the famous front for Citroën. And it was a bit risky to have it on the front there. So this is called the Spirit of Wind, also the same one. So speed is trains, like here. We have a Cassandre to the left, this beautiful post, and to the right, some of you might probably visited the Coit Tower in San Francisco, which was all surrounded with beautiful murals of that time about industry and what was made. And here we see how proud they are of their ships. And here we have Raymond Lévy, a French designer who came to America and worked a lot in America. And look at the front, the light in front and the speed lines on the train, and here they are again on a film of the time. We have almost the same one, the same light, the same speeding lights, and some big romance. Speed is also the black book, which, as we saw, between the Normandy, the de France, all these beautiful, all these ships that go across the Atlantic, which were not only beautiful, the interior, people came on them just to see the interior, or to go across, but also to enjoy. Prohibition, there was beautiful to eat, marvelous food, chefs, all the first-class cabins were done by different, each first-class cabin was different by different well-known designer, Hornman and other, a lot of beautiful lighting, like we have seen the Normandy, a Cassandre, again very striking. And this is the first-class dining room, and on the side it's longer than the Galerie des Glaces in Versailles. And you see how important the lighting is. We saw the lighting in Donaldeschi's Radio City Music Hall, but lighting is also very important in that time. This is verglas, which means it's painted on the back in gold. It belongs to the Met, but it's also part of. It was also on the Normandy. And the smoking room on those ships was also very interesting. Again, speed, whether from antiquity or horses or to the bottom is a textile by Pomone. And when they came, they were gloriously welcomed in America. It was great excitement. And I will finish with something that to do with our Deco, which certainly has to do with speed and with transatlantic crossing. This, I came upon this tomb here in Passy, at the Trocadéro, in fact. And as you can see, Maurice Bellon, the premier Paris-New York in 1930. And this was the time when Charles Lindbergh was coming over. And Ningesser and Colli, who were also two very French, very well-known French pilots, tried to cross and then got lost in the Atlantic Ocean. 2 weeks later, Charles Lindbergh did the other way around, and of course landed in France, to a huge French were of course still very sad about Ningesser and Colli, but they were very taken by the welcome him. So it was a time when there were many women pilots. Out of 100 women, 100 pilot, how would you say, I don't know how to call it. There were 25 women, so that was a lot. This is a good example. And Bessie Coleman, she was a black lady from a sharecropping family. No one wanted to give her lessons, so because she was black and she was white. So she learned French, went to France to get her pilot's license, came back, and was, very, very courageous. But unfortunately, like many of these brave pioneers, she disappeared much too young. And of course, Amelia Earhart was of that type too. And finally, this is another photograph by Margaret Burke White. She took the photograph of another plane and below. And you can see here, this is the Chrysler building again. It's all black by now, but we see it. And here, so it's a time hope. Of very great anxiety, and here, this is the Chrysler building again, and we can see he's catching a plane. So this is the end of my transatlantic adventure.